Labeled permanently and totally disabled at age 27, today's guest had to live in a room with nothing in it except chairs and a lamp as a result of extreme chemical sensitivity. She shares her journey of years of recovery in her book entitled Love is the Healer. She has appeared in documentaries produced by ABC Australia, ABC USA, and BBC Great Britain. Welcome to the show, Maryanne. How are you doing?
I'm great, Toby, and thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Mirror Talk Podcast. I really appreciate your presence here. I am so happy and delighted that we spent so much time before present recording to get to know each other and to discuss a little bit. That was so awesome. Thank you so much for that. And I'm so moved by your story also, like being in isolation for a long period of time after your graduation in Michigan, and having to go through that journey of recovery. I don't know, will it be okay for you to share this story of healing and recovery with me? And can you tell us how it all started?
Yeah, well, I finished my master's degree from the University of Michigan when I was 25. And my degree was in social work, so I wanted to help people and change the world. And I was on fire to do it. I'm a Sagittarian. I have a lot of passion for whatever I do. And within 3 months of that, I was hit by a car crossing a street in a blizzard. The woman didn't see me. And within 18 months of that, a year and a half later, my immune system had collapsed completely. And I had become very, very sensitive to any chemical in the air, food, and water. And of course, in 20th century and 21st century life, so much that is in the air, food, and water is a chemical. So I reached the point where I was 32 kilos or 69 pounds, and I couldn't eat, and I was very weak. And just by grace, there could be no other explanation, by grace, I landed in front of a doctor who had studied environmental medicine. And she asked me a few questions like, how do you feel when you put gasoline in your car? And I said, oh, I love that smell. I've always loved that smell. And how do you feel when you polish your nails? I said, oh, I love that smell too. And she pieced it together that I was actually somebody who from a child was very responsive to chemicals, but I would get a high as a child. I mean, I wouldn't go out and sniff nail polish, but when it was there, I would go, oh, I love this smell. So she pieced it together and said, you're very, very sensitive to chemicals. And the only way you're going to recover is to get away from them so your immune system can get stronger. And that's when she suggested that really, to save my life, I should live in a bubble. And that's a room. Well, in my case, some bubbles might have a little more in it, but I was so sensitive at that time that all that was in the room were 3 old wooden chairs and a lamp. So that meant there was no paper, there was no pen, there was no books, there was no clothes, there was no phone. It really was just 3 chairs, a lamp, and me.
And how did that feel like for you, like to live in a bubble, like to be completely isolated from the rest of the world for a very long period of time? How was that experience like?
At first, Toby, it was a relief because everything I was near in the world caused pain, everything. So I was living in constant pain, couldn't eat, I was fighting for my life. So when I got into this room, my whole body relaxed because there's nothing here that can hurt me. The chairs are fine, the lamp is fine, I just sit here, I'm okay. But then naturally, after 3 or 4 months, a depression started to, I wouldn't say I was clinically depressed, but I certainly felt burdened by the fact that I was only 27 years old and this was my future. This was my life. At that point, I had been labeled permanently and totally disabled by the United States government. They presumed I would never work again, and I was given a pension. So yes, it was a relief, but on the other hand, I didn't have anything to look forward to. This was it, just sitting there. So that was hard. But let me finish with the positive note because it was very positive. I had a lot of friends, and they were determined to make sure I wasn't lonely, and they were determined to help me. And so they came every day and they had new ideas of things I could try, all kinds of things to strengthen my mind, strengthen my heart, my emotions. And so I was constantly being fed by others
Mm.
in that room.
Yeah. So you were able to allow friends to come into the bubble, but without their, mobile phones or
Oh,
anything that
it
has
was
to do with
before the
chemical.
days of mobile phones, so we didn't have to worry about them. It was
Oh,
the
yeah.
early 80s, late 70s,
Oh,
early 80s. So it was
okay.
before mobile phones, and they all were very careful. I mean, they never would
Mm.
go fill up their car with gas before they came to see me. Never. They
Oh,
would also
yeah.
bring an extra set of clothes so that if they came
Mm.
in and I started to say, I'm getting the pain, and the pain meant there was a chemical, they'd say,
Mm.
don't worry, I'll just go out. I have a new set of clothes. I'll put them
Mm.
on. We'll try again. So
Mm.
I was okay because people worked very, very hard to make sure they didn't bring anything into the room that would be a problem.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's the power of having great friends around you, and yeah, people that support you in your journey and every phase of life that you are in.
It's critical
Yeah.
if you're chronically
Mm.
ill. It's
Mm.
critical with chronic illness that you feel
Mm.
support. And fortunately, today, because of the internet, you don't necessarily have to have people visiting you every night. There's all kinds of support available on the internet, through
That's
the
true.
internet.
Yeah. That's true. So I got to understand that from your journey or during your experience, you got to know what courage truly means. Like you had to have that courage to go through this whole journey of the pain, the dark phases, almost getting depressed, and being isolated also. So from your experience, can you tell me what courage means to you? How would you define courage, and how can we learn from this experience? So how can we become courageous?
A great question. It really is. Courage comes from a Latin word, heart. And
Mm.
it's a great question because people often said when you were in the bubble, you were always smiling. And,
Mm.
one would ask, "Well, how was I like that?" It's probably goes to the core of my existence. I think I, I love life. I really love life, no matter how hard it is. I love being able to learn. I love being able to grow. I love being able to help someone.
Mm.
I love opening up more and more and letting people's love in. So the
Mm.
courage came, I think, from the heart, from this love. My own love inspired me to go beyond that part that would say, "Oh, I'm not going to try anymore. I don't care
Yeah.
anymore. This is ridiculous. I'll
Mm.
never have a life." That love just pulled me to, "No, I'm going to try." And I
Yeah.
think the biggest breakthrough for me was when the day I knew this illness was not just physical.
Mm.
Now, I was very, very lucky because I turned to my doctor one day and I said, "What causes this? How does
Yeah.
somebody get to the point they can't have a pencil near them without
Mm.
curling over in pain?" I said, "What caused this?" And Toby, you'll love the way she answered it because the conventional medical approach
Mm.
says there's one cause for one effect.
Yeah.
But the holistic approach says, no, that's not true. There
Mm.
is not one cause. So when I asked my doctor, Paula,
Mm.
I said, "Paula, what caused this? What made me like this?" She answered with one word. She said,
What is
"Everything.
everything?
Everything caused it." So what that
Oh.
did for me, Toby, instead of thinking, "Oh, it's plastics. Oh, it's pesticides. Oh, I've got to keep those away from me. That's all I have to do." I began
Mm.
to think, wait a minute, if everything caused it, then everything can help me get well.
Yes.
So I started to think, I started to reflect
Mm.
on my emotions and my thoughts. How did they have something to do with it?
Mm.
So the turning point was the day I was in the bubble. Of course, I had to go into a bathroom, but I could do it. I could do it. The bathroom was modern, very new, and it had a fiberglass bathtub, which is very bad for someone as sensitive as I am. So I
Mm.
knew that I could go in, hold my breath, take a quick shower, brush my teeth, and get out of there. I knew I could hold my breath and have no symptoms because I wasn't breathing a chemical. So one day I went to go into the bathroom and I put my hand on the doorknob. I was not out of the bubble, and I got the pain. I got the pain that I would get if I were in the bathroom breathing. And I said to myself, this is impossible. I'm sitting right in the bubble. 5 seconds ago, I was sitting in the bubble. Now I'm standing up. How come I have the pain? I said, I got to try this again. So I moved my hand slowly to the doorknob and I got the pain. And then I finally went right into my body. I said, what's going on? And I said, I'm scared to get out of the bubble. I'm scared to be alive. So I started to see this dichotomy that, yes, there is a love of life, there's a passion of life, but there's also a great fear of life in me, a great fear. And it's been there since I was a little girl. So that was I can't tell you the opening that was, because I said, oh my God, if a part of me is scared to go out of the bubble, well, I'm never going to get out of this place unless I start dealing with that fear.
So as I go to as I'm understanding right now, like that fear caused that pain, even though you are in the bubble where you're not supposed to feel any pain, but the fear of living in the bubble and induced that pain into your body system.
No, it was already there. It was already there.
It's already there.
But the reason I had never really dealt with it, even though I was troubled as a child, sent to a psychiatrist, certainly I wasn't normal as a child at all. But the reason I hadn't been able to get closer to it is because I was an extremely high achiever, extremely high, always trying to be the best, always trying to do more, always trying to get awards, just pushing. And when you push like that, believe me, you don't slow down enough to notice you're frightened. You just keep pushing.
So what do you do with the fear? How do you get rid of this fear in order to move forward in life?
Well, what we know, because I'm a therapist, that's what my degree is in. I work every day helping people do just this. How do we deal with fear, sorrow, and anger? And believe me, I think this should be taught in every elementary school, because people then, if they don't learn this, then later in life, they're stuck. They're either over drinking, they're smoking, overeating, they're doing tons of things just not to feel. And if we just learned, if we could teach children, how can you feel your pain and release it? This is emotional intelligence, not intellect, IQ. This is EQ, emotional intelligence. How do you feel it? Release it. So I'll give you what I did for myself, what I do with clients. In any situation, any moment that the body mind, and I refer to the body as the body mind because it's one and the same, they're absolutely connected. All your thoughts affect the body. The body affects how you think. All your emotions affect the body. How the body feels affects your emotions. They're absolutely connected. So I refer to it as the body mind. In any moment, Toby, that the body mind is distressed, you will find tightness somewhere in the body. So, for example, if you are crossing a street and a car comes quickly, and you register, that's a very obvious example. You will find tightness in about 4 different places easily. So anytime we get upset, we tighten. That's just what the body does to protect us, to try to lock in the pain, hold it back. So the key is to take awareness, take attention, and find that tightness. Don't drink to get away, don't eat to get away, don't smoke to get away, but go closer to that tightness. Because when we go into that tightness with our awareness, when we bring it in there, that causes the tightness to break up. It literally starts to dissolve. One great psychologist, very well known for her understanding of emotional pain, is a woman named Joan Rosenberg. And she says that if we would just learn how to feel the pain, usually in 60 seconds, it will go away. But we can spend our whole lives trying not to feel the pain. So to conclude the answer to your question, I was in a uniquely wonderful circumstance in that bubble because I couldn't achieve a damn thing. I mean, in the world, there was no achievements. I couldn't try to impress anybody. I couldn't try to be the best in the class, none of that. I just sat there day and night on a chair. So I had an incredible opportunity to observe my fear, my sorrow, my anger, and learn how to start finally feeling them and releasing
Yes.
them.
Wow. Wow, that's so beautiful. And from that, you learned a lot, I believe. Like in your book, Love is the Healer, you documented your journey of recovery in the bubble also. Can you tell me more about your book and why do you title it Love is the Healer?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say I forgot the most important part of the healing. I mean, yes, I had to do my part. Believe me, I wouldn't be well if I didn't work hard. There's no way, there was no fairy godmother who could take it all away. I had to go through a lot in that bubble. But as I mentioned to you, I had a lot of friends and they really helped me. But one day, a miracle really happened. A man came to visit me. I didn't really know him that well at all, but he came to visit me. And after he left, I called a friend of mine. I was given a phone. It was made out of wood, no plastic, and it was outside of the bubble. And I could put my hand outside the door and pull it up and talk on it for about a minute before I'd get pain. So I was able to use a phone. So after this man left, I called my friend and I said, something really, really bad has happened. She said, what is it? Because she thought maybe I was dying or something. She said, what happened?
Yeah.
I said, I've fallen in love.
Oh.
And she said, well, what's bad about that? And I
Yeah.
said, who's going to want me? Look at me. Look at me. I look like a ghost. I'm so pale. I'm so thin. I just sit on a chair all day and all night. Who's going to want me? I said, this guy isn't going to want me. And she said, you have to trust. You have to trust. I said, okay. So I stayed up all night. Well, it's easy to stay up all night because I didn't have a bed. So I just sat on the chair and all night long, I just went, I choose to trust. I choose to trust. I choose to trust. I just tried to get it into my brain that maybe this man would like me too. So the next day the phone rang. And as I said, I reached my arm out of the bubble. I picked it up and it was this man. And he said, I had a lovely time visiting you. Could I come back to see you? And I got off the phone and I just started crying because I thought, my God, he likes me. So we've been together 43 years.
Wow.
And he's had to go through a lot because unfortunately, after I got out of the bubble, twice I've almost died from pesticide exposures. They were unintentional. It's just I went into places where there was pesticide spraying and I almost died. And he's had to just pour everything he had in to keeping me alive. So the reason I titled the book Love is the Healer is because this body mind that was so frightened of life, even though I loved it, I was frightened of being alive. This body learned in the presence of his love and his devotion and his caring, I learned to open up, go way beyond my fear, and defy every prediction made for me. Every prediction was I'd be very lucky to get back in the world. I'm in the world. I've taught at universities. I've lived in 8 or 9 different countries. I've defied all the predictions. And I don't say that in an arrogant, boasting way at all. I say it very humbly. It's a miracle. Yes, I worked hard, but I was very blessed to have somebody and all my other friends as well support me and invite me to go beyond my fear.
Yes. Love conquers fear. Love brings healing
That's
into our
absolutely
lives.
right, Toby. That's why I titled the book that way. It really, that's why I say the bubble was perfect, because if I were out in the world and he came into my life, I'd be, oh no, I've got to work hard and then I want to do this and then I want to do this. But there was no doing. I couldn't even touch a pencil. I just sat there. So there was no way to deflect it. There was no way to push it away. It was just right in front of me and I wanted it.
Wow, that's so beautiful. So for people who love to read this book, where can they get it to read it? Where is it
It's on
available?
Amazon, Amazon Germany, Amazon Spain, Amazon UK, Amazon Australia, Amazon USA, Kindle. It's on all the, places you would expect it to see. Or if people, some of my clients say they don't as I said, I'm a therapist. Some of my clients say, I don't like Amazon. I don't want to buy anything from Amazon. I say, okay, then you go to the publisher because they have a wonderful bookshop. So it's called Book Baby, and they have a bookshop and you can get it direct from them. They send it out the next day if you're in the United States. In Europe, of course, you wouldn't do that because the postage would be prohibitive. So Amazon
Yes.
or people in the United States, Book Baby Bookshop.
Awesome. That's great. So this information will be available in the show notes of this episode. So anyone who is interested in reading about the holistic approach that Maryanne had to, go through, you could, click on the link, order the book on Amazon or buy it from the bookstore also in the
Book
USA.
Baby Bookshop. Yeah. It's definitely a story of a holistic approach to healing. And a lot of people with chronic illness, Toby, have understood that they can't just rely on a physical change, like just changing the diet, just taking a pill. They begin to understand their whole body and mind and emotion and spirit are involved in the illness, in the creation of it and in the healing of it.
Yes, that's true. And talking about, holistic approach to things, when you were in the bubble or in this, stage of recovery that you had to, go through, you learned or you explored the connections between the mind, body, emotions, and the spirit also. And I find it very fascinating because I would love you to explain this to me. Like, how were you able to explore the connections between your mind, body, emotions, and spirit? And what did you learn or discover during this journey?
Okay, well, first of all, just for your listeners, if you think of a round pie, and you divide it into 4 big pieces: body, emotion, mind, and spirit. Body, of course, the physical body. Mind, our thoughts, our beliefs, our attitudes, including our unconscious beliefs, things we don't even know we believe, but they've been sitting in us. Our emotions are, of course, our emotions, including unconscious emotions, things that are there that have been too frightening to feel and we push them down. Spirit, of course, is that capacity to feel beyond ourselves. What is beyond the body? The body will die, but what is beyond the body? How do we allow awareness to feel what's greater than ourselves? So those are the 4 quadrants. So the holistic approach says that in any moment of life, all of them are interacting, all of them. So let me give you an example. Let's say a person is depressed and that person eats a lot of dairy products. We may find that the depression doesn't really have a lot to do with something that happened 2 months ago. It may be that the dairy is affecting the brain and causing the brain chemistry to be off, so to speak, and depression to occur. So there's the body affecting emotion. On the other hand, we may have a person getting ready to do something at work that's very difficult. And the mind keeps saying, I'll never be able to do it. I'll never be able to do it. I'll never be able to. It's much too hard. I can't do it. The next thing we know, the body fails, quote unquote, fails at the task. More than likely because the brain is just pumping through the message, you can't do it. Then we have a person who's working hard to get well, but they're dying. They are dying and they're beginning to, I've helped a lot of clients die. They're accepting the fact now the body will die. Those clients who can feel beyond the body to whatever they want to call it, love, consciousness, being, truth, whatever they conceive of it as, those clients will continue to heal even while they're dying. In other words, spirit will eclipse the body. There's an example of that holistic nature. Yeah, the body's dying. Of course, it's dying, but that doesn't mean there isn't more growth, more healing happening because attention is moving beyond the confines of the physical body. So, in any moment, these 4 are interacting. The key when you have a chronic illness is to try to figure out what are the dominoes, what are the ones that are affecting the others dramatically. So in my case, if I had just worked with my emotions and thoughts and stayed in the world with the chemicals, I'd be dead now. No question about it. I was just dying. It was too much. So we had to get to the physical first. We had to get me away from those chemicals. However, if we just had me sitting in that bubble every day on a chair by myself, feeling
Yeah.
sorry for myself, feeling I'll never have a life, blah, 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 blah. I wouldn't have gotten out of the bubble. I just wouldn't have gotten out of
True.
it. So in
True.
that situation, the first domino was the body, address that. But then we had to look at, what are my thoughts? What are my feelings, including my unconscious ones, like the one I mentioned a few minutes ago when I touched the
Yeah.
doorknob and heard, I don't want to get out of the bubble. I'm too scared. We had to address those. And every time I got through one of those thoughts, one of those emotions that was stopping me from recovery, my body got stronger. So that's the holistic approach. And today, fortunately, the sky's the limit. There are so many modalities. That means therapeutic approaches that
Yeah.
begin with this holistic approach. So they might do something like a hands-on healing that relaxes the body deeply. Because if we can relax the body deeply, then physically it will start to get better. Then there's emotional freedom technique tapping, which is used all over the world. And its basis is we can tap the acupuncture meridian endpoints and we can reduce stress in our bodies. I could talk about 100 different modalities that today
Yeah.
begin with the body, emotion, mind, and spirit are all connected. And if we work with some of them, we will affect the others.
Yes, that's true, and that's why your specialization is in the mind body healing. You
Yes.
practice the mind body healing for people. Yeah.
My work, it's interesting what happened. I didn't tell one part of this story. Obviously, I'm very sensitive, and I was very, very sensitive as a child, and nobody really knew what to do. My poor parents didn't know. They just kept saying, try not to be so sensitive. Well, that doesn't work. If you're sensitive, you're sensitive. Your parents can
Of
say,
course.
please don't be so sensitive. But, I'd watch a movie and I'd cry for 2 days. Everybody else would be outside playing. And I can't, I'm so upset. So I'm very, very sensitive. So that's, of course, one of the reasons why the chemicals affected me so much. But I didn't mention this because it is a really wonderful ending to the story. After one of the pesticide exposures in which I almost died, I was 40 years old, and my friends begged me to go see a psychic healer. Well, I said, I don't know what a psychic healer is. I don't know if she can help me. They said, you've got to go see her. You've got to go. I said, okay. So my husband drove me to her and we sat down and she looked at me and she said, do you realize you can do this work better than I can? I said, well, to be honest with you, I don't even know what you do. And she said, do you realize how extraordinarily gifted you are? And I said, no, I don't think you understand. I'm not gifted. I'm sick. I thought, well, maybe she's confusing me with somebody else. I'm not gifted. I am, fighting for my life again. And she said, do you understand how sensitive you are? And I rolled my eyes, Toby, like, oh my God, don't say that to me again. I just rolled my eyes. And my husband said to her, do you mind not saying that word? She doesn't like that word. Everybody tells her every doctor says she's so sensitive. So she got mad. She looked at me and she said, you've been given a gift and you're throwing it away. I said, what? She said, you could be using this sensitivity to help people. I said, well, to be honest, I don't even know what you're talking about. So she said, bring a photo next week of someone who's sick and I'll train you, no charge. So we got in the car and my husband said, do you want this training? I said, I don't even know what she's talking about. But let's face it, there's nothing I can do in the world. I can't go into any public building. I can hardly talk on a phone. If she thinks there's something I can do that helps somebody, I might as well learn what she's I might as well learn it. Maybe I can do something. So I arrived the next week with a photo of my nephew. My mother sent it to me. She said he was not well. Nobody knew what it was. So I brought the photo to her and she said, look at the photo. I did. She said, tell me what's the matter with him. I said, well, I don't know if you heard me. I said, we don't know what's the matter with him. She said, close your eyes and open up your energy centers and tell me what's the matter with him. I thought, and she was very bossy. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I knew where they are the chakras, the chakra energy system. I knew where they were. So I just said this silently to myself. I said, wherever these energy centers are, may they all open up right now. And then I looked down at the photo. And all of a sudden, I was in this person's body, my nephew's body, and I was feeling everything in his body. And I went, oh, Oh, my throat. Oh, I'm so angry. And she said, see, you've been doing it your whole life. You've been taking on other people's pain.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
said, you have to learn a good boundary and you have to learn how to use this sensitivity, not to get sick, but to help someone get well.
Mm.
So the next thing you know, it was a year later, I asked friends if I could work with them at no charge. I did that for a year. I just worked with anybody who wanted it. I just went in their body, just like I knew how to do. It was like flipping a switch, Toby. It was so easy. I'd been doing it all my life. I just didn't know I was doing it. And then I went in the body, and then I could find out why the person was stuck. So let's say I work with a lot of women trying to conceive children. And I work with women, there's no physical reason. They can't find any reason why they're not conceiving. So I go in their
Yeah.
body and I'll find often, I'm too scared to have a child. I'm too scared. I'll find the stuff that they're not able to feel themselves. So the
Mm.
nice thing is that was many years ago. So what happened is then I started to do this as my profession. And I've been doing it for 30 years, working with babies before they're born, working with women who want to conceive, working with people who have health problems, working with people who are stuck. They just feel, I don't know what's going on, but nothing is moving in my life. And then,
Mm.
because I'm a passionate teacher, I went to hospitals and I said, could we teach the nurses a holistic approach to healing and that the mind and body are connected? So I started to teach in hospitals. And then the
Mhm.
next thing I know, I was teaching in 4 universities, medical students and nursing students, how to um, recognize that the tissue often stored lots of stuff that the person wasn't able to feel. Now, I knew I wasn't a fool. I knew these medical students and nursing students would not be able to use this in a hospital. I knew that
Mhm.
that's not the way today is yet in the world. The
Yeah.
healing is not that way in hospitals. But I felt
Mhm.
that if they learned how to do this for themselves, then somewhere along their career, they would have the
Mm.
opportunity to invite others to see things from this whole person point of view and to understand that sometimes in the tissue there is content, there is memories, there is emotion that is affecting the outcome of healing, of conceiving, of having money, of whatever a person
Mm.
wants.
Wow. So all of this, has to do with intuition, right? Or
Intuition.
how do you intuition? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Wow. That sounds so, so amazing. Like it's for me something completely new. But you said you were able to learn this and also be able to use it to, heal other people
Yeah.
or help them in their healing journeys. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm trying
Yeah.
to give, I mean, there's so many examples I could give you. Let me just, oh,
Mm-hmm.
here's a very dramatic one. I mean, sometimes the stories are very dramatic, not always, but sometimes they are. A woman called me, she was about 35. She had 3 young children. She was told she had motor neuron, which is a degenerative disease, and one doesn't live long once the diagnosis has been given. It was March when she called me. They said that she had till December. I made it clear to her that I couldn't promise that I would make any difference at all. I didn't want her going into this thinking that I was the answer. I couldn't do that. But I said, I'm happy to do it and we can just see if it's helpful. And she said, I'm not expecting anything, but I just want to see what you sense. So I went in her body, which is easy. As I said, it's like turning a switch. I can do it anytime I want to. I'm very
Yeah.
ethical about it. I don't do it unless a client asks me to do it. So I don't go down the street and go in someone's body. I don't feel that's right. But if a friend calls me and says, will you help? Of course I will. So I went in her body. And the first thing I saw, and I knew nothing about her past, just that she was dying and she had 3 children. That's all I knew. So I went in her body and I saw a very tall man standing by a bed. And I saw her. She wasn't a child, she was a teenager lying in bed. The man was not hitting her or abusing her, but he was yelling. He was just yelling and yelling and yelling. And I saw her on the bed, and she was saying to herself, not quietly, not out loud to him, she was just very still. She said, if I'm not perfect, I'll kill myself.
Oh.
So I said that to her very gently. That's the art. You can't blast people with information like this. It's traumatic stuff.
Mm.
It's stuff from their past that was overwhelming. So I just said it very quietly. This is what I'm seeing and feeling. Would you notice in your body what happens when I say this to you? Toby, she screamed so loud that I had to pull the phone away from the ear. It was in the day of
Mm.
phones, not Zoom. And
Mm.
she screamed and cried. I couldn't even understand what she was saying. It was just screaming and crying. But then as she stopped crying, I could hear the words, "It's true, it's true." Now, she told me
Wow.
then her father used to come in at night when she was a teenager and just start yelling. He could stand there for 2 hours yelling at her. And the only way she could stay sane was she tried to get her anger to go back at him. Of course, she couldn't yell back. Of course, she couldn't hit him or anything like that. But what she did was try to get mad. But instead of going back at him, because she really couldn't, she turned it on herself. She said, "If I'm not perfect, I'll kill myself."
Mm.
And so she cried and cried and cried. And when we got off the phone, I remember just kind of doing a little prayer, like, just maybe, could this work? Could it be
Mm.
enough? Because of the mind body connection, we know the emotions relate to illness. Could it be enough
Yeah.
emotion released that disease would go? We just had to
Mm.
hope. And I got the call a month later. They couldn't find any evidence of the disease at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. So how can we let go, and how can we release what is holding us back, in the realm of physical healing or financial well-being or in relationships? Like from the examples you've mentioned already, like something was holding them back, some tension in their joints is causing illness for them, or emotions also could be causing disease or sicknesses for them. So how can we learn, or how can we let go and release things that are causing our illness or setbacks?
This is what I would suggest. I would suggest relaxing first. Obviously, don't do it when you're in a car or anything like that, or you're at work. Just relaxing
Mm.
and do what's called a body scan. First of all, put
Mm.
what your I should say first, your intention. My intention is
Yeah.
to uncover what's holding me back financially. My intention is to discover what's holding me back in my healing from my migraines. Just set the
Mm.
intention. Then I do a
Mm.
scan of the body. It's called a body scan.
Mm.
You just start from the top of the head and you just, with your attention inside your body, you just go down
Mm.
and find what's tight. So you might,
Mm.
let's say the throat is a very common tight place because people are holding back expression of emotion. So let's say a person, let's give an example. What's holding me back financially? I work hard. I want to have money. I'll do good with the money. What's holding me back? Okay, let's scan the body and let's find where it's tight. Because as I said at the start of the recording, wherever there's
Mm.
tightness, there's content. There's something
Yeah.
in there. It's not tight for no reason. It's tight because awareness went, no, don't feel that. It's too much. So let's say
Mm.
we have the person trying to get financial abundance.
Yeah.
I'm making this up, but this could easily happen. She goes down to the throat. Oh, it's so
Mm.
tight there. Place attention right into the tightness. Don't run from it. Oh, it's
Mm.
scary. Go in.
Mm.
Keep breathing. Keep breathing. The breath is what helps you get through the feeling. In other words,
Mm.
you feel it on the in breath. Oh, it's so
Yeah.
scary. And on the out breath, oh, I'm letting it go. So go into the
Mm.
tightness, rest there, and just ask, why are you
Yeah.
so tight? Why are you so tight? Then the secret is to be ready to hear anything because we never know what the tissue is storing. So, for
Mm.
example, in the financial abundance, you may get to the throat and you go in and say, why are you so tight? You just keep keeping the breath going there. Even if you're scared, just keep breathing. And you may hear something
Mm.
like, I don't deserve money. I don't
Mm.
deserve it. Okay. You don't throw it away. You don't let the thinking mind say, that's not true. You're a good person. You
Mm.
deserve it. If the body
Mm.
gives you that message, you let it be there. I don't deserve it. Then you might
Mm.
keep going down. And normally the diaphragm, the largest muscle in the body between the ribs, normally in any situation of chronic um, chronic problem, shall we say, a thing that isn't moving in life, will be very
Yeah.
tight. So you go in there.
Mm-hmm.
Why
Mm.
am I not? Because I'm not good enough. I've never been good enough. Now, the secret again is to not go, oh, I am a good person. The secret is to let the tissue actually talk to you. Because as one of the most famous trauma therapists in the world, his name is Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, said in the title of his book, he said, the body keeps the score. What he means by that, Toby, is that your thinking mind will say, of course, I'm a very good person. But if, as a child or somewhere along the way, a person got overwhelmed with the feeling that they were no good, and that didn't get released, it will still be sitting in the body. The body keeps the score, even though the thinking mind will say, of course, I'm over that. I've been very successful at my job and I'm very good. No, if the body hasn't released that sense of, I'm no good, if the body hasn't done that, then that will be tending to run the show in daily life unconsciously. The person won't have a clue. They'll be working really, really hard to make money, and they can't understand why it's not happening because the body keeps the score, and that unconscious content is pulling them back from the healing, the financial abundance for whatever it is they would like.
Yes. Wow, that's so brilliant. Like we have to like stay calm, state our intention, listen to our body, go from the head to the body scan and listen and don't, argue with what your body's
That's
telling
right.
you.
Whatever comes up, like I've had 3 clients in 1 year. They all really wanted children. They were doing IVF and everything. And I went in their bodies. All 3 of them said right away when I got in, I don't want a child. Now think about this. They're paying $10,000 for IVF, in vitro fertilization. They're working
Yes.
like crazy, meditating, diet, everything to have children. I go in all 3 bodies in 1 year. They were right after another. And they all say to me, I don't want a child. Now, they have a choice in that moment. They can say, you're crazy. You're crazy, Maryanne. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Goodbye. Or they can say, let's explore this. All 3 of them said, I want to explore this. It was so easy to figure out why unconsciously they didn't want children. It was easy peasy to figure it out. Once we start exploring their past, we could easily figure out why they didn't want to have children. So what we did in each of their case is help them feel that resistance. Instead of run from the, I don't want children, go right into it and feel the fear, the sorrow, the anger. So we did it in all 3 cases. All 3 women have their baby boys. All 3 women have written me and saying, I wouldn't have Johnny without you. I just wouldn't. And I understand it's to be true. It's not so much I'm wonderful. It's just that by virtue of the intuitive ability, we were able to get to that content that they couldn't get to themselves.
Yeah, but like in that example that I just stated right now with the ladies who are trying to get babies, what could have been stopping their body from not allowing them to have or to conceive?
I can actually tell you in 2, I can't remember the third, what was the reason with that one, but 2 out of the 3, their own pre-birth experience was not a safe one. They didn't feel safe coming into the world. So you raise a very important question, because we can have a trauma that's in the past, it's over, but then we can have something that triggers our memory of the trauma. Let me give you an example. I was hit by a car. Now, I'm not nervous walking on streets. I go everywhere walking. However, if I take a foot off the curb and a car comes around the corner quickly, my body starts shaking. Now, I don't think every day, oh, I'm so scared to be hit by a car. I never think of that. But my body is what Bessel says. My body keeps the score. It remembers the trauma of that car hitting me. That's called a trigger. When that car comes around that corner and my body goes, even though it's not going to hit me, I see it coming fast. My body is triggered into the memory of the past. So as these women start thinking, oh, I want a baby. I want a baby. Their body starts remembering what it was like before they were born. Their mothers are good people. They weren't abused or anything like that, but their mothers were scared of opening their hearts. That was the problem. So the mothers were very tight, very tight. They did everything, the clothes, the food, they did everything, and they were kind to them, but they couldn't give up their hearts. So when these women tried to have children, the body remembered what it was like for them before they were born, and the body then made the decision, we're not going to have a child. So by going into that content, feeling some of that memory of the past, releasing it, because as soon as we feel it, we start to release it. That's the secret. Go feel it, it'll start to
Yeah.
release. Then the body opened up and they all conceived their children.
That's so beautiful. I love that. You have to feel it, release it, and become healed from that.
That's right. Feeling and releasing. And we can even do it when the body's dying. I really want to stress that, because this very material world we live in says death is death, everything's gone. It is not true. It is absolutely not true that we can, even on our deathbed, be going through our fear, going through our sorrow, going through our anger, going through our regrets, going through that which would hold us back from opening our awareness to what is greater.
Wow, that's so beautiful talking to you, Maryanne. I really appreciate everything I've been able to learn from you.
Thank you.
Like, I'm sure there are people. Thank you so much. There are people out there who would love to, like, get in contact with you, work with you, maybe get some of your services also. So, what's the best way to connect and work with you?
Well, I would say just through my website, and my name is very simple, Maryanne, Maryanne, all one word, and my last name is Sea, just like the ocean. I'm also on Facebook, so people can ask to be a friend, and or whatever it's called, contact, and I'll say yes. And I told you, Toby, before we started, I'm half German, so I'm quite responsive. I mean, if somebody writes me, they'll get an answer within 48 hours maximum. And I love connecting with people. I love participating in the healing journeys of people. I think that's why, in part, I worked so hard to get well. I really wanted to be back in this world, and I really wanted to do something with what I had learned through my 20 years of environmental illness.
Yes, and it's so beautiful and so wonderful that you're using your experience to help other people to become, better people and to get their own healing also. That's so awesome. Thank you so much, Maryanne.
Toby, thank you so much. It was wonderful to talk to you.
Wow, you made it to the very end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful for your time, your love, and your contributions. Subscribe, like, review, and share this podcast. God bless you. Bye. Bye.